What you're about to hear is an incredible story of an incredible man, Chris Lewis, who set up a charity with a friend called SimPal 7 years ago to help people access devices and data and stay connected with friends and family who cannot afford it or can't have access to a device. And it's to help primarily people with cancer, but also helping anyone in need.
Me, I'm a fighter and I've got great support around me that enables me to have that confidence because I know where I can go for that support, right? But I'm thinking about those people that don't have that, and that's a majority of this country. They don't have that. So I'm not one to sit by and watch something happen. I just can't do that. I have to get involved.
Chris himself was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4 mantle cell lymphoma, in 2007.
And I was just stunned into silence. And those that know me, that's a very rare situation. I'm very rarely a silent guy. And I couldn't stop talking on the way home about what was I going to do for work. And she said, "Didn't you listen to what the doctor just told you?" I said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "You might not last 6 months. So why on earth are you worried about work?"
I spoke to Chris about what what was his experience going through all of that, and what were the reasons behind setting up the charity that he did. And it's incredibly inspiring conversation that I've had, of a man, a very special man who's dedicated the last 16 years of his life since he got diagnosed, helping others is so inspiring. And he's there day in day out in this charity, supporting people right across the UK. And he shared some really heartening, touching stories through the work that he's been doing. So let's dive into the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. So, Chris, before we dive into talking about SimPal, uh, can you share with us a bit of the backstory um, before you started SimPal? You know, what was happening before then? And I know in 2007 you were diagnosed with stage 4 mantle cell lymphoma, and I'm ignorant of different cancers, so it'll be great to for me and listeners as well to understand, you know, what that is, learn about what that is, and take us through, you know, those months back, going back 16 years ago. You know, what happened, what was the experience during that time, and those few months and years.
Thanks, Margie. Thanks for inviting me onto your podcast. It's a great privilege for me to meet someone like yourself. Thank you. To give that, That's a great question. I think to give it a little bit of context, I need to go back before the cancer came. So I'm what I call an entrepreneur. I don't really fit into many mainstream boxes. I never did at school. I was always a bit outside of the system at school. And I realised when I left school that I never really wanted to work for anybody. I always wanted to do something myself. But what that looked like, it was a big world in front of me then, particularly in those days. You know, that was in the 60s. But luckily enough, we didn't have too many qualification issues and stuff. So I started in my local supermarket. I was a little bit lazy. I looked in the local paper to find a job, and I went to the local supermarket. And after doing that, I just went there to wheel the trolleys round, really, just to get a bit of an income because we weren't a wealthy family at all. And after wheeling the trolleys round, somebody saw something in me, and they said, "Look, man, you want to go on a course? Do you want to, go a bit further in this organisation?" And my first question was, "Do I earn any more money?" And the guy said, "Oh, you earn more money." So I said, "Look, I'll go with it." It was a young organisation then, and they were looking for people like me, unbeknown to me, and they saw something in me. So I moved up very quickly up the rankings, and I ended up staying there for 7 years. I became their youngest assistant shop manager. I think I was 23 at the time, so that was really very young in those days. But I knew that wasn't for me. It was within four walls, so I got out and I went to Unilever, and I went as a representative in South London. I enjoyed that. They gave me a company car, which was all the rage in those days as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Company car. And I used to drive around South London selling Wall's ice cream, the old Cornetto man. Not from a van, of course, but I used to go and see all the shops and supermarkets as a representative, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But I could never see myself earning a million there. And a friend of mine one day invited me to come into what's called the web trade. He was selling fabric for ladies' clothing, which I knew nothing about, of course. And he offered to double my pay and give me a much better car. So there I was taking another opportunity.
Yeah.
That
No
led me
brainer.
into sort of 20 odd years of what I term absolute chaos. The rag trade was full of people like Sir Philip Green. There was a lot of money swimming around in it. You know, the money, you just
Mm.
had to get out of bed and earn money. I never thought that this world existed. You know, I had the fastest cars in town. I was a boy about town. I had those massive mobile phones, you know, so I was really Jack the Lad in
Yeah, yeah.
those days. I didn't think anything could touch me. As I got older, I then stayed in that business and ended up working for myself because I had all the contacts. I knew how it worked. It was simple. You buy something for a penny and you sell it for tuppence, right? It's not complex. So I started working for myself and ended up with an extremely successful partnership with one of my customers. And we created our own business. We ended up, before 2007, which was when I got ill, a multi-million pound business, which we built from absolutely nothing. I had the customers, and he had the money, and he chose to back me, which was incredible, you know, real great faith. And we built up to an £8 million business, which was incredible. Then I got sick. I got the cancer that you talked about. The trade changed as well at that time, actually, because we were doing local things. We were making products in England and Europe, and the fashions changed to cheap fashion. You know, the Primarks of the world, they all got on it.
Yeah.
Everybody went to China, India, Sri Lanka, all of those places. So the market changed. But anyway, my life changed in another way. I was diagnosed, as you say, with stage 4 mantle cell lymphoma. For people like yourself, who don't know what that is, as I didn't at the time. It's a blood cancer. It's a similar type of thing to leukemia. So leukemia is probably a more popular name
Yeah.
that people know. But so it affects the whole of your body because it's in your bloodstream, right? And when I was told I had this by the very senior consultant, I said to him, "What is stage 4?" And he looked at me and he said, "Well, there isn't really any stage 5." So I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's serious." And he said, "It's very serious, I'm afraid to say." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Are you sure you've got the name right?" Because I said, "I'm a lucky guy. You know, nothing ever happens to me. Everything I touch turns to gold. You know, I got a job without any qualifications. I passed my driving test first time. I met an incredible woman to marry when I was 21, right? Who I'm still with now, thank the Lord." I said, I'm a really lucky guy. You know, this sort of thing doesn't happen to me. But I said, "Unfortunately, it has happened to you, Mr. Lewis. We've done all the tests. Everything is as it is." So that really sort of took the wind out of my sails. And I said to him, "Well, you know, what's next?" He said, "Well, quite honestly," he said, "we don't know what's going to happen." He said, "I can tell you the regime that you're going to have to go through now. You're going to have a full body scan because we need to see exactly where it is and how bad it is." And then he said, "We're going to give you a lot of aggressive chemotherapy. You're in decent shape physically." So he said, "You're going to be able to take the aggressive chemo, which you will need to try and get
Yeah.
your body into remission." So that is basically kill all the cancer cells that were there.
Yeah.
But he said, the cancer you have is incurable. So he said, it won't be gone for long. and so we need to do the only thing that we can possibly look at is a stem cell transplant, which I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
What is that? And that was explained that your body, we all have a different immune system, one which is unique to us, and that's like the padlock to kick the bad boys out. So what has happened when you get cancer? The cancer's unpicked your personal padlock. So I needed somebody else's immune system to help protect me from the cancer that was in my body. So it was then explained to me what was required to happen, that they needed to search for a match as close as they possibly could to me, that would then give me that system that might help me against the cancer. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Michael?
yeah, that makes sense. And when you first got that diagnosis, what was going through your mind? What was your initial reaction and thinking?
Well, I was a young lad about town. I'd experienced a lot of bad stuff, right? I'd survived up to that point. And so when faced with my own mortality, that was like, that's never, I didn't know what to think. My first thought, I mean, I was lucky because my wife was there. She wasn't there because they told her to come. She was there because when the NHS phoned me up to come in for a review, my wife thought it was odd because I'd only just had my tonsils out. And I said to her, I said, look, this is fantastic service. The NHS, they're worried about an old boy who's just had his tonsils out. Who moans about the NHS when you get this care? But she said, no, I think there's something else. I've got to come with you. So
Mm,
at the time, she was there when I got that news. And in a way, I was pleased because I wouldn't have to tell her that. She'd heard it for herself. And I was just stunned into silence. And those that know me, that's a very rare situation. I'm very rarely a silent guy. And I couldn't stop talking on the way home about what was I going to do for work. And she said, "Didn't you listen to what the doctor just told you?" I said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "You might not last 6 months. So why on earth are you worried about work?" I said, "Look, ever since I'm 15, I've worked. Right? I'm 51 now, and I can't imagine what it's like without an income. We've got two kids growing up. We had the life. Fast cars, fast phones, fast everything, fast dinner, fast everything. I was like, how is it? How is it? How am I going to sustain this?
yeah,
This is just awful. I can't imagine a life without an income. But I still never really saw the fact that I might not be alive. I never saw that.
yeah. That's 16 years ago now. You're given that, and thank God, it's amazing that you're here with us, and the amazing work that you're going through. And you touched on the treatment that you had, the chemotherapy. What is that like? It's
Oh
obviously not
man.
had any personal experiences or family going through that. But
No, well,
I've of course heard of it, and it's not particularly pleasant, is it? To say it
no.
very, very lightly.
Mind you, I sincerely hope that you and your family don't go through that. You don't have to go through that. But chemo's, look, these days, I mean, as you said, it's 16 years ago now, right? Chemo, like a lot of other things around cancer, has improved. The treatments are getting much more targeted. But even back then, the idea of chemotherapy was to kill off bad cells, right? So I had a lot of bad cells. So therefore, it was required that I had a lot of chemo and the most aggressive chemo which my body could take.
Yeah, yeah,
Because obviously, when they're giving you bad stuff, which is very toxic, you need to be in a decent shape to be able to take that physically. Not everyone is in great shape when they come to have their chemotherapy. So there are degrees of chemotherapy, but I had used to come into a day unit in St George's Hospital, my second home, and my wonderful. They're my family. I call those guys now. They're my family that look after me. Still look after me now, you know.
Yeah.
I went into the chemo unit, and you have toxic poison basically into your veins. And I had that for one afternoon every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that has a cumulative effect. So
Yeah.
basically, it has more impact the more of it you have, if that makes sense. It becomes
Yeah.
stronger and stronger, and the impact on your body becomes harder and harder to deal with. But it became then for me a battle of wills, because it's not only, we don't only face physical issues in our life. A lot of the issues we face are mental as well, right? So you might have a strong body and a weak mind, or you might have a weak body and a strong mind, or you might have strong and strong. We're all totally different. But my resilience, I, I told you before, I had a tough life at school. Things were very tough, and I built what that gave me was resilience, uh, and that stayed with me, fortunately. And everybody told me how bad chemo was going to be, the clinicians, and of course other people that have been through it. I decided that I wanted to try, and it was my ambition to try and work through my chemo. So I made a plan that I would have I mean, the hospital were wonderful. They understood what I wanted to do. But they were very flexible with me. And I said, look, can I go on a Friday session, a Friday afternoon, where I can have Saturday and Sunday to sort of recover, if you like, recharge a little. And I said to my colleagues at work, I said, look, I'll come in on a Monday afternoon, because I can get up a little bit later on a Monday and get in on transport and stuff. And that really worked. So I had 6 sessions of that. So that was every fortnight. So that was 12 weeks. And I worked through it. And that made me, in my mind, starting to win. Because this terrible thing that brought a lot of people down, it didn't bring me down. And that was the first
Mm.
stage, which to me was so important. I might have felt like failure, if you like, if I hadn't been able to do that. But that was my goal. That was my immediate goal, to face up to chemo, and it wasn't going to beat me. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong,
Amazing.
I was ill. I was ill.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah. Of course, as you said, it takes a emotional and mental toll, as well as the physical. So it's amazing that you've got through that, and many others are going through that as well. Um, are you going through any treatment? Are you still ongoing any kind of treatment at the moment?
I'm on, I'm on lots of medication, to be honest,
Mm.
because
So-
not not specifically for the cancer, but obviously once I've had this lot,
mm.
I've got a very weakened immune system through what's gone on. So I'm very prone to infections and stuff like that. And you would have seen through COVID, people talked about immune systems and weakened immune systems, and that's what I have. So
Yeah.
my immune system is still not normal because it's been bashed and battered. So I'm quite prone to coughs, colds, infections, and all that sort of stuff. And currently, I'm going through some things with my bums, where my bums are now breaking because of the treatment that I had. So I'm I'm in a really unique position, if you like, in the fact that nobody really expected me to last this long, at all, because I was blasted with the big guns, and it was just a question of keeping me alive at that stage. So if someone had said to me, "Look, Chris, you're going to get 15 years out of it," But after that, you might have a problem. I'd say, what are we worried about after that? You know what I'm saying? I'll take the 15 years. But
Yeah.
now is the payback time. So, now the stuff's happening, which
Yeah.
we knew it could. And there's no complaint for me. It's just a question of managing it. I will be on medications for the rest of my life. For example, I can't sleep. That triggered something in my brain, the cancer. Now I can't sleep, so I have to take medication for sleeping. And there are other things, that come around. But the cancer at the moment's at bay, and it's been at bay for so long. So that's brilliant. And now I'm getting the payback. I've seen 3
It's
grandchildren
still good.
I never had. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really incredibly inspiring, Chris, and being defiant and keeping going and fighting this to support people and be around, your loved ones who this will be affecting as well. But you're of course making them so proud with the work that you've been doing. So which kind of leads us onto the next bit of it, your amazing work that you have been doing. And I wonder, Chris, if you could tell us, what after you're still going through these experiences, but what was at what point did you decide I wanted to go out and help people? And what was it? Was it the experience that you were having through your care, or something else potentially? Why did you set up your charity, SimPal, and what does it do, and the service that it provides? There's a few questions in there. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a
Is that
few. I'd like to sort of go back before SimPal, actually, to give it
Oh,
even
please do.
better
Please do.
context. No, we spoke earlier about not having any experience of cancer. I mean, although my father died of cancer and my mother had breast cancer, actually, I asked my doctor on a very visit to my GP. He said, "Do you have any questions for me, Mr. Lewis?" This is before my diagnosis, by the way. And I said, "Yeah, actually, my mum and my dad had cancer." And he goes, "I know what you're going to ask." I said, "What's that?" And he said, what is the chance of you getting cancer?" So I said, "Yeah, I was going to ask that." And he said, "Mr. Lewis, your chances are just like everybody else." He said, "Just because they got it, I said, okay. He's my GP, right? He must know.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, I
Um,
got it.
um,
So I, once I was enrolled into the world of cancer with my personal experience, um, I was absolutely horrified at what I saw. Not the treatment. I'm not talking about that. The NHS doing wonderful things. They still are. There's a lot of criticism going around. They're still doing wonderful things. And the NHS are doing wonderful things. But I was absolutely shocked at the total lack of support for people like myself going through cancer, coming out the other end. If look, many people don't. I have a privilege. I'm privileged. I've come out, or I'm coming. I'm living a life which is reasonable. A lot of people would be happy to do that. A lot of people don't get it. But after that, I was absolutely shocked at what I saw in society, I'll be honest, in the cancer support world. I didn't see any practical support. All people wanted to do was give me booklets, give me citizens' advice, telephone number. I mean, it was like really that period. I mean, I had more than a year, I suppose. Some people have a lot more than that, by the way. But where I was out of life normal, I was in hospital most of that time. I was forwards to hospital, and it was like, okay, Mr. Lewis, now's your time to try and recover. And it was like when I left the hospital, opened the doors and I was blinded by the light. I was coming back into something that I didn't really recognise because I'd had 24/7 support for so long. I mean, I couldn't drive. I had no confidence in the road to drive. Felt all busy. And it was a frightening world. Dealing with things like banks and mortgages and the practicalities of life. And by the way, these practicalities are different for at different ages. These problems are different. Young kids going through education, trying to find their love life. Do they tell people they've had cancer? Trying to find a career when they've got cancer. Those are. But as an older man, my problems were different because I needed to earn money. My pension was coming along. I needed to do something with that, right? I needed to find my old relationship with my wife and my kids because I'd become vulnerable. I was the guy who don't get me wrong, my wife, she loves organising things, but I was the guy that people looked to for that life. Take him to a party, he'll shake you up, and I was frightened. I didn't even want to go out, but there was absolutely nothing. These big charities, they talk about what they do. They do very little, to be honest with you, in general terms. I'm sure we'll find people that support them. I'm sure we will. Of course we will. But I'm talking about a general scenario. There was no help with work or anything like that. Relationships. What I found was that people wanted to discriminate against me because I'd had cancer. Now, I imagined that there might be in my pink fluffy world someone to come and say, "Oh, Chris, bloody hell, that was bad luck, man. You were setting the world alight in your business. Come back and you've got plenty to offer society, right? Come and join us and do this or do that." But no, you've had cancer. No, man. That means you're going to be unreliable. You know what I mean? You're going to want to every 5 minutes. You're going to have to have treatment. You're going to be sick. Talk to your bank. No, don't do that. You tell them. You tell your bank you've got cancer. What they want to do is make a mortgage. Insurance company, they don't want to know about it, right? I was 52, I suppose, at that time, an employer's dream, but I don't want to be employed. I never wanted to be employed. So I'm not looking for an employer, but I was looking from that perspective of other people. I'm a fighter, and I've got great support around me that enables me to have that confidence because I know where I can go for that support. But I'm thinking about those people that don't have that, and that's a majority of this country. We don't have that. So I'm not one to sit by and watch something happen. I just can't do that. I have to get involved. And when I thought, am I a moaning guy? Am I just the one who thinks this should be a whole lot better? So I started in clinic asking people, what are you doing now for a job? How are you finding it? You getting any benefits? What do you need? What was your social situation? Your family scenario? And all I heard, pretty much 90% of the time plus, was their life had got a whole lot worse. Not just physically, but socially. And I thought, this is not right. So I spoke to a few friends of mine, and of course they're all surprised. They're not in that world. They see the TV adverts and think all these people are all lovely and cuddly, right? But they're not. They're all they are. You're one on the database, and they want you to leave money to them in a will or run a bloody marathon for them. That's all they want to do, right? That's not help. So I had no idea of social media, none. And my friend said, "Oh, you need to be on social media," right? And they set me up a little website, a really simple little website, not the one I have now, but a really little simple website. And I got going on it. I'm like, wow, this is quite good. And I found the powers of Twitter and blogging and all that sort of stuff. And then life changed for me. for the
Yeah.
real positive.
And we got connected on LinkedIn as well. So that's really insightful, and people, you know, uh, like myself, outside experiencing cancer, I'm not having an appreciation of how much of an impact it has on day to day life and practicalities and things, and looking after loved ones, doing your work that you're doing previously, and as you said, social life as well. Uh, has a huge impact. So I guess this has led you to set up SimPal. Do you want to dive into talking about SimPal? You know, what do you provide? What is it? I think it's been running for 7 years now, I believe.
It has, yeah, and
Yeah.
the 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 crisis cancer community that I started, which I just spoke to you about, that led
Yeah.
me to get a reputation for truth speaking. Right? And listen, what I've been through, I've got nothing to be frightened of in my life. Nothing. I've seen it all, right? You know, I've been knocking on heaven's door for a few nights, right? So I've got nothing to be scared of. So I wanted to do things new in the cancer world because, you know, as you even see today, we're still doing what we did like 80 or 90 years ago. You know, we're still burning cancer, we're still cutting it, and we're still poisoning it, right? You know, we've got fancier names for it now, but we're still doing the basics. But still, the numbers are going up. When I got diagnosed, it was 1 in 3. Now it's 1 in 2. So that to me is not success. So if I keep going on what they've been doing, I'm not going to get success. That's the definition of madness, as we know. So I'm always looking for ideas. And what happened was, regarding SimPal, I, I do a lot of public speaking and stuff, and somebody came along and they said, "Look, you're you're our man. We want to take a chance with you to open a few doors." This was a lady that her business was mobile phones, and she said, "Look, cancer's come to my door, and it's not very nice, and I want to do something." But big organisations, they're not very sympathetic. They don't listen, and they're not open to any ideas. They just close the door and get me running around with emails. So she said, "You know, I've seen what you do. I've seen how you operate. Would you be interested in working with us to create a mobile phone system?" So at that time, I was really, really busy, and I thought, do I want to get involved in mobile phones? And bearing in mind, this was 7 years ago, right? But I knew when I was in isolation, which I was for a long time, you know, just on my own, NHS, look, it's their work is medical and clinical, right? They're not bothered whether there's Wi-Fi in the room or your streaming drops out. Okay, but for me, that was a big thing. You know, I was in my room on my own. I wanted to see films and I wanted to do that sort of stuff. It was bloody expensive back in the day, right? So I said, do you know something? That's quite a good idea because I know from my own experience that people are stuck without proper communication in hospital. And I looked, and what was important to me was that no one else was doing it. I'm not interested in touching something people have their hands on. That's fine for them if they've come up with something new. Good for you. But I'll try and find something new. I couldn't find anybody that did it, and I did my research globally, not just in the UK. There was nobody. Well, there still is nobody. So I said, "Yeah, let's have a go.
Yeah.
Let's
So
have a go."
it's the only charity in the world doing this type of work. Is that
In
right?
the way that we work,
Which is
yes,
incredible.
the way that
Yeah.
we work, absolutely. Why? Because there's no money in it,
Amazing.
right? It's quite simple. Um, So I said, let's have a go. So we made a plan. We sat in a hotel. We made a plan. What do we want to do? So I said, look, I don't know much about the work of mobile phones, how that business operates. So you do that, and I'll do the marketing side, and we'll stick with cancer. because of my website, I was well known, not just throughout the country, but across the globe. And people were very receptive to me. You know, I built my brand. Chris's Cancer Community is known as honesty, integrity, resilience. That's what it's known for, right? So when I phone nurses up and say, listen, if you've got a punter, you've got a patient, you need some support with communication. It's like, what? What? I said, yeah, it's new, right? It's new. Yeah, we've got plenty of those
Amazing.
people. We've got plenty of those people. So we started only small. You know, we just wanted to open the door and just see.
Like grassroots level and engaging, and did you started off with one primary care unit or a hospital, etc.?
We started off with a couple of little charities, and we said, look, little cancer charities, because that's where the action is. The real, you know, that's where the real heavy lifting is done in community, not nationally. That's just more for
Yeah.
politics and. But where the heavy lifting is done is in the community. So I knew these guys, right? I was helping them. They were helping me. So I said, look, give a couple away to people you know, any worthy cause, give them away, give them a phone. We'll pay for the SIM cards, right? Let's just get them going. So we did, and it proved very successful. So if I'm honest, mind you, I didn't want to create a charity because I'm not really a red tape man. I like to just see the problem and crack
Yeah.
on with it, right? We needed to create
Yeah.
charity. Obviously, now in hindsight, I know, you know, really it's paid dividends for us. But we did it.
I guess you've reached a stage where you need to scale and maybe get funding, and now you're quite a large entity. Then it's then you need to start heading towards kind of formalizing things, right, and creating a structure.
Yeah, that was it. And we found, I mean, we don't get any grants, by the way. We don't get any grants. We don't get any government funding or anything like that. Whatever money comes into the charity. But because I'm a business guy and the two other guys with me, we're all retired. We're all experienced in business. It's what we know. So we find that the business area is much more productive for us. They get the problem. We don't have to spend 6 months writing a grant funding form and then be told not getting it after 6 months. You know, quite honestly, the sector we're in, cancer doesn't
Yeah.
wait for anybody, and actually, nor does this situation of communication. It's worse. So yeah, we created the charity because we had to. And it formalised everything. It made it easier for us. We were more accepted by people wanting to sponsor us and that sort of stuff. We were more accepted. So that was fine. It opened the
Yeah.
door. It gave it the legitimacy, if you like, that we
Yeah.
needed. So still people they didn't really get it, actually, 7 years ago. They didn't really get it. You know, most of the people were like, what do you do? Oh, we give phones to people who haven't got it. It's like, oh, really? Yeah, but everyone's got a phone, haven't they? Everyone's got it. What about the broadband? Everyone's got it, haven't they?
It's a huge misconception, isn't it?
But
There's
that was
several
7
million
years
people
ago,
that.
mind you, right? That was 7 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
and then came, interestingly, so we carried on, and we're fine. We're not egomaniacs. Plenty of people tell us they don't know our name, and that's fine too, right? Especially back then. But then what happened was the game changer for all of us, I'd say, was COVID, right? Absolutely changed the world, changed the charity world. You know, a lot of them had to close because of it, but on the positive, a lot have opened since then. You know, we saw different challenges, the food banks and that sort of stuff. And that to me shows the real power of community, because the community, we're in the UK, right, saw the problem. Food, cost of living. So all of these lovely people, food banks and whatever, sprung up, not exactly overnight, because the problem's been coming. It didn't just occur because of COVID. It's been there for some time. People decided they wanted to get out and take some action to physically do something. So what happened was, ironically, with our charity, some of the people that didn't know us before made a point of finding us. So there were things like HUK, Alzheimer's, those sort of people came to us and said, "Hey, you're already doing this thing because we can't keep in contact with our people. They haven't got broadband, they haven't got phones, they don't understand how the digital market works. Could you help us?" So we did some short-term projects. And I knew they were only short term because they didn't work them properly. They didn't do what I said to them to do. Because everybody at that
Yeah.
time, that was the major panic, was to get people connected, right? But nobody really considered any longevity and sustainability. Even the O2s and Vodafones and all of these of the world, they were running around when people got COVID, they were sick in hospital, dropping off tablets and SIM cards. But in truth, nobody really knew what to do with it. It was all right for a short term. But, that's all gone. We've all got their publicity from it, and everything's gone back to a new normal, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
I said to our guys, right, what we've learned from COVID is everybody across society has got problems with connection. So we're not just going to help people with cancer or affected by cancer. We are going to help anyone who has a connection problem, because the digital connection is so equal now. It's so unbalanced. And the people who
Yeah.
need it most are the ones who get it least. So,
Absolutely. I think the pandemic really kind of blew the lid off and showed, just how much of a divide there is around accessibility, access to devices, and then having the competency to use it, right? Though that digital skills as well, and it persists.
yeah, the thing is, since then it's got worse. But again, I mentioned to you earlier on, I can't sit by and watch it happen. We were very comfortable in the cancer community. It was the area we knew. I knew it well. People trusted us. I mean, I do all the applications, so I'm used to dealing with vulnerable people. And I think people felt comfortable because myself, I had cancer, so they knew, that they would get quite well received, let's say. But so then opening the door to other challenges was a challenge for us, because now we're dealing with almost every sector across the country. So we've got education, right, with kids that don't have devices, they don't have Wi-Fi at home, do their homework, keep up with their studies. Even adults, the same, right? They can't do that. Domestic violence, where one partner or another is thrown out of the house, drug dealing, where people have sold their phones, people on the streets, homeless, people in hospital that are vulnerable, don't have any way of communicating, people that have cancer and can't communicate with the people who are running their chemo, applying for jobs. Everything now is online, pretty much. And
Yeah,
your
yeah,
basic is to have a home address, right? That's a basic thing for people. But secondly, if you have no mobile device, you're absolutely out of the
yeah.
system and getting lost.
Absolutely. I was hearing stories about some councils in London where they've one day just decided to move everything online. So if you wanted to get the blue badge disability, the disability badge, or apply for a certain council benefit, etc., you have to do it online. Everything. There's the paper alternative had disappeared. So, um, but as we know, what if you don't have a computer? You don't know how to do those skills. So what do those people do? Another story I heard was uh, and this is very common, is the when you're parking and paying for your parking, it's cashless anymore. It's cashless. You have to download an app. So people are struggling, and then what they've been told is, oh, you just downloaded the app. But there's quite a lot of steps, right? If you think about it, first, right, your smartphone. right? You need to be able to navigate. Well, have a smartphone in the first place. Navigate your smartphone, right? How do you get the app? You have to go to the app store. What's an app store, right? Now you're finally on the app store. You need an account. You need an Apple ID. You need a Google thing, a Google account. Right, you need to download it and then set up another login, another password. So once you start breaking it down, there's loads of steps. It's not just download the app, as people have been saying. So there's these kind of not invisible barriers. It's very direct barriers that are popping up as well. So it's every bit digitally excluding people. If we just take that word out, digitally excluded, you've just been excluded from society, full stop, to go about your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a very simple example of that. Actually, what you're talking about, you're right about the parking. But look, I'm a football man, right? And I'm a Crystal Palace fan, and I've been going to Crystal Palace since I was a lad. So I've gone more than 50 years, and I know everybody there now. not every
Yeah.
fan, but I know a lot of people through my communications with the club, my work with the club. The fans know me on Twitter. I'm quite well known. I've got 7 tickets there. I've got 7 season tickets, which I have now. I take my grandkids to it as well. But I've got 2 grandkids, me and my wife and my sons come. We all go. Now they've gone the Premier League, okay? They want digital only, right? So last year I had a row in the box office. I said, I've got 2 kids. They don't have mobile phones. Get them into the ground. Oh, okay. So we'll make an exception. But I said, I don't want any exceptions. I want 7 plastic tickets to bring to the ground to come in. Now, this season, they only gave me 4. For all the adults with my partner, there's 3 of us, you've got to come digitally. I said, my kids don't have the latest phones that deal with your app. They can't just send that ticket to somebody else and Photoshop it or whatever you've got to do to it. So it's right. I mean, that's my love of my life. Even football, you're struggling now to get in, because of digital access.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a bit of a danger when companies are building these systems, assuming that the majority of people can use it. And I'm not saying even if it was the majority of people can use it, that should still be the case, that they all 100% digitize everything. I don't think it is the case where, and I don't think people are realizing when they're designing the systems that it isn't the majority that is going to be able to use these systems. So I do think it's a big portion. It's a significant amount of people that can't access these services. They can't use these.
It is a big proportion, actually, and it's a lot bigger than you might think. And I'm always quite interested. I'm interested in apps, right, and health apps particularly. But I often get the opportunity to speak to some of these people that are designing them, and I said, look, you're not doing this for free. There's got to be some profit somewhere, right? Someone's got to pay, and it has to be the consumer generally. I said, and those are the people that might receive most benefit from it, but are not into paying for health apps. I said, but the other thing is, when you go to hospital, a lot of these people spend a lot of time in hospital. The Wi-Fi is absolutely rubbish.
Yeah.
A lot of all this digital stuff, even that the hospitals produce, you can't even get the reception of it. I go to my hospital and they say, look, I said, it's a big place. They said, yeah, we have a digital map. I said, what's that, online? I said, you can't get reception in your hospital.
Yeah. And I've never been a fan of those, those TVs that you put above your bed, right?
On that.
Stuff that you put, and then you have to pay. I think you get like the BBC channels for free or something, or there's some sort of restriction. I'm not sure you get it 24/7, and then you have to just pay for everything else. pretty much. And I've always thought, what is the how expensive would it be? The crazy amount of funds that would have been invested in putting those units in, all
Actually,
those units in, and infrastructure.
interestingly, mind you, that was one of the first things that came to my mind, right? When I was in
Yeah,
hospital, and I was like, how did this come about? And when I got into SimPal, I started talking to some senior people at hospitals, and those were old contracts that somebody persuaded the NHS that they were going to get so much money per year, right? And whoever it was who signed those contracts, they were signed up for years and years and years, and there was no way of getting rid of these folks. Really,
I,
absolutely astounding business. Really shocking.
yeah. I've never seen any of my family members use them at all, and how do you even pay for it? You have to. I think. I think you have to. There's something next to the lifts where you have to top up or something, and then you get a card or something or input it. Um, to be, yeah, it never seemed like a great idea.
It used to be like that. You're right. I
Um,
mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it for some time. But what used to make me smile
yeah,
was when we got mobile phones, right? It became much more affordable for more people to have mobile phones. What they used to do on the wards where they had those televisions, they used to say, "Don't use your mobile phone because it's going to upset the equipment." But it had nothing to do with the equipment. It was so people weren't watching the television on their mobile
yeah,
phone.
yeah, yeah. That's so funny. It's so important to be connected now. I mean, if I put myself in your shoes or other people in a hospital, if I'm disconnected from my wife, um, and my kids and my mum and other family, if I didn't have a device, um, it'd take me maybe 5 6 hours before I start cracking and thinking, all right, how's my kids? How's my wife? I just want to speak to my wife, speak to my kids. I want to. I do video call all day, all the time. I do video calls. Mum's video calling me, etc. It's just a part of our life now and has been for a while. So it's incredible, work that you're doing that where you can, for some people that cannot afford a device, and again, there might be like a huge misconception that, oh, it's just a mobile device. You can just go get one for £150. £100, smartphones are only £100 these days. £100 can be a lot of money for people, and I can totally understand this because my work through the food bank for nearly 10 years now in Newcastle, I can see, and, and it has increased. The hardship has really increased over the last years. People don't have that money to even put food on the table and then they have to contend with medical things and buying stuff for their kids, their school uniform and things like that. So no, they can't afford £100 smartphone, which can be such a lifeline. I mean, that's how it's described, I think, on your website, and you've said it, Chris, as well previously when we've chatted. It can be such a lifeline for people. What what impact has the charity seen over the last 7 years? And if there's any stories that you could share, Chris.
Stories. Because time we give a device or a SIM card, depending. Look, in the earlier days, we did probably 80% SIM cards, 20% phones. Now it's probably 90% phones, 10% SIMs, which is created. That's been
Mm,
created by the market situation. So when we first started, and we'll talk about impact, but what we have to understand is the change in the digital market, right? So when we started SimPal 7 years ago, we were still when I say we, I'm in the country, we're still on the, oh, we're happy to pay, 40, 50 quid a month. And I'm generalising. For the new Apple phone or the new Samsung phone or whatever it was, the marketing from these phone companies was such that we'd almost accepted that we were paying 40 or 50 pounds a month for that. And then they'd ring you up after 2 years, right? And they'd say, hey, mind you, listen, we've got a lovely present for you. We've got a lovely new whatever, right? And you go, oh, that's okay. And they say, it doesn't matter, it doesn't cost you any more. You still keep paying your 50 quid a month, right? And we'll give you this new phone. And so what happened at that time was people said, oh, we asked and we said, look, if you've got any phones hanging about the house, spare ones, send them to us and we can use them. We used to get a lot of phones that way.
Yeah.
It's changed dramatically over that period now. So we have COVID, so people started sharing phones in their family instead of giving them away. Then we've got the cost of living crisis where the bigger boys, there was a few of them already started pre-COVID, so it didn't start COVID. But already there was like, hold on, do I need to keep changing my phone every 2 years? Because the technology gap is getting smaller, right? So what you're actually getting is quite
Yeah.
a different shape camera or
The
something, right?
changes are barely a difference.
Barely recognisable, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, actually, I might as well not have that. And so, or the likes of Music Magpie, Amazon, and still some of the big boys were saying, okay, well, give us your second-hand tech because we know it's quite good. We'll give you 50 quid for it, right? So people are going, 50 quid, that's 50 quid I never had before because that was just sitting in a drawer. I'll start having a look for all my old phones and sending them
There's
back.
a huge second-hand market that's popped up, hasn't it, for all types of devices.
So that's what's creating the problems that there are now, right? Because even the least valuable, let's say, of a mobile phone has a value in the second-hand market. So up to now, we've been able to survive on donated funds, but now we can't. I have to go to market and buy. We don't buy new phones. We never use new phones. We like the fact that we'd have a bit of green policy, if you like, so we can extend the use of the life of a mobile phone. So I was doing some research the other day and I found that 3/4 of the cost and impact on a mobile phone is when it's first made. Right, so if you can give it some longer life, you're actually at least making that sort of more economical on the planet as well as financially. So we only use pre-used phones. So that now there is a shortage of devices in the marketplace. Not only mobiles, because mobiles are cheaper, but you've got tablets, laptops, that sort of stuff that people now need or want as other ways of communicating and doing their work. So that's a problem in itself. It's turned, and I've had to already this morning. I've had to send a note to an organisation I work with to ration the number of asks that I'm getting from them because it's just unsustainable currently. The supply of units is not what the demand is now. But coming back to your impact point, back in the early days, everybody loves an impact report, right? It seems in this business, and I say, look, for everyone that we give something to, we've changed their life, right? So I'm not keeping filling out an impact form because if you don't have a phone and suddenly someone gives you a phone, it's life changing. For everyone,
absolutely.
Right? And if I say to you, Bonjour, you don't have to worry about your bills for the next 6 months, right? I've got them covered for you, right? So you make as many calls, texts, and even your data is paid for 6 months, right? you don't have to worry about it. That's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'd feel a huge amount of relief and bit of a burden lifted. Um, and you're already going through something that's difficult enough, right?
Yeah, we did a unbelievable story, so many actually. We work with a council who does a bit further on than we do. So we give the devices and SIMs, and that's the end of our commitment, as it were. But this council does more. So they actually give the devices to the people. They find the need. We supply them with the device and SIM, and they help the people set it up, like you were talking about earlier. So we don't do that, but we do work with some people that do it. And they just told me recently, actually, of a case where they gave a mobile phone to a lady who's deaf, who never used a mobile phone before. But they gave this phone to her and put an app on it where she could see what was being spoken on the app. 72.
Yeah.
72. And the lady cried.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It's totally changed her life. Honestly, there are so many stories like that. The other day, I sent 5 SIM cards to a family, right? This was a legitimate immigration case. The family were here legitimately, but their case hadn't been passed. So I think they're here for 2 years, but they can't work and they can't do this and they can't do that. This poor lady, she had no money, no means of working. And you know what she was doing? She was studying, right, to become an interpreter in the NHS. Right, now, what a story that is for me. You know, it's like, wow. And she said, I haven't got any data. And she said, my kids have all settled into the local school, but they don't have any data either, right? So you know what I did? I sent them 5 data SIM cards. 1 for mum, 1 for dad, and 3 for the older children. Right? She sent me a message back. She said, everybody's doing their studies brilliantly, and we've even got enough data left for the 2 little kids to watch their films. Now,
Amazing.
I'm like, you know what I mean?
What impact that has had on their life, for their education, for that person's work, and it's something they want to contribute back to the country, right? And to the NHS. What better way?
Yeah, I mean,
it's really...
to be honest, mind you, these stories come every single day. Ironically, just before we came on live here, I got an email from the NHS from a nurse that deals with diabetic kids. She's got 500 diabetic kids. And apparently so many of the families now can't keep in touch with the hospital because they've got no data. Can we help?
Yeah. Amazing.
You know, we've got people
Really?
who are dying but have never got a mobile phone to keep in contact with people. You know, those are the sort of things that we're doing. People don't, the average person doesn't think about that, right? Why should they? Let's be fair, we all want to get in our own little world and enjoy ourselves as much as we can, right? I don't want to be spreading doom and gloom around about the work I do. You know, people don't understand it, and why should they? But it exists.
Absolutely, and every day, you're helping them, and it could feel like it's such a small thing that the action may be quite simplistic, right? A mobile phone, a SIM card, but through those stories, just those few stories that you shared, it could make all the difference for that person that you're supporting, and then their life as well. So it's really, really heartening and amazing to hear. And you just do this day in, day out. You must be kind of exhausted from the kind of, I guess, emotional drain. Plus, I imagine it's the the thing that's driving you as well and getting you up in the morning.
Yeah, mind you, you're 100%. You're 100% right, and I think knowing you the little bit that I've got to know you, I feel that the same applies to you. I mean, look, I'm fortunate, right? I'm strictly by age, I'm retired, right? But I'm not interested in retirement. I'm not interested in it. Never have been, to be honest with you. Even when I was working, it never really thrilled me with deep joy that I would one day sit in my back garden and look at the sunshine. It didn't really fill me with any joy. And the fact that that sort of feeling is self-perpetuating. I think you'll understand what I mean by that. So, you know, I like a challenge. I've got to the place in life where I can't say money's important. That sounds a little bit flip, but I don't need to work for money. I don't need to, right? So I will only ever look. Don't get me wrong. If someone wants to pay me, that's fine. You know, we all need to put soup on the table, right? And I'll make sure that I'm paid my true value. You know, but I don't choose any of my work to do with money. So I only choose my work, and that's whether it's SimPal work or whether it's speaking work or writing work or whatever. I only choose where I'm going to make an impact, right? Cancer has shown me that I don't look long term. So, you know, listen to all this government waffle and whatever's going to happen in 50 years' time, right? I switch right off. I'm not interested in the 10-year health plan of the NHS. Well, they don't have one now, right? But, you know, I'm not interested in any of that. I want to know if I go into a room, I've made someone's life better by, I don't know, hopefully motivating them to do something nice, helping them maybe do something nice. Maybe they hadn't have thought about that. Maybe helping somebody just, you know, in a queue somewhere, giving them a little bit of time, or just treating people a little bit better. That's my sort of message. And it is. I'm a great believer in karma. And, you know, I've got so many incredible people around me. You know, and that just doesn't happen overnight. That happens from relationship building, where the roots are really down. You know, you have some wonderful relationships in the work that you do, but you didn't have them when you started, did you? You know, I say to people on social media, they'll say, "Oh, everyone knows you," and I say, "Yeah, but I started with no followers like everyone else." Right?
Absolutely, yeah,
It's the oxygen
and
that keeps me wanting to do it. You're right. Get me out of bed in the morning. What's my next email going to bring? Look, there's always some bad news. You know, there's always that. Always. But then I think, actually, but if I didn't do this, I wouldn't have helped those number of people. Do you know what I mean? Their life would have been a bit poorer.
yeah, absolutely, and all the things, you know, all the thing that happened for that person because of why you've helped them, how you've helped them, rather, all the kind of ripple effects that happens. It could be a huge thing. So I'm just kind of generally speaking here, is a small action or a large action can have huge ripple effects that you may not realize is going to happen, and sometimes that realization doesn't happen for years and years to come. I think I'm the kind of a beneficiary of these ripple effects. People that supported me, you know, a decade ago and 15 years ago, etc. Role models and mentors, and people that probably don't realize they are being a mentor or a spark. That's one of the reasons that I set up this podcast when we were chatting, Chris, and one of the reasons that I wanted to speak with you about your amazing story, and so that it can help others as well. You know, set that spark for change as well.
And that's why I'm really grateful, Monju, to, you know, with media and sharing, we all have our own circles, right? But the real power of sharing is going outside your own circle. You know, it's like a pop star, right? He's got his own fans, but the real power is when he gets other people's fans, right? So my story, people know my story from inside my circle, but the real power that you've got is sharing this story, because it will be unknown to many people that are in your circle. So no, that's a delight. Look, all I want to do is help people without the politics. That's my little strap line. You know,
Yeah.
look, in digital connectivity, you'll see it day in and day out. Everyone's talking about it, right? But actually, not many people are really doing something. They're all talking about it. They want to come back to the table and discuss it and discuss it and discuss it. But, you know, days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months, months turn to years, and people's lives are going past unless somebody does something.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not saying that we're the solution to that. We're all of us just a sticking plaster on society's problems, right? You know, we're just trying to put our finger in the dam because there are so many societal issues. Why is it that people can't afford these things? That problem is bigger than you and me. But
Yeah, absolutely.
you've got to do something,
I can
right?
totally relate to what. Exactly. You got to. Sometimes, I have been not quite criticized. That's probably too strong a word, but told that what's the point of? It's not going to make a difference. Like you're doing a bit of why are you helping the food bank, or why are you doing this? I did a bit of volunteering in the Syrian border just to help Syrian refugees, etc. It's a drop in the ocean. It's not going to make a difference. But you got to try and do something, right? And I can totally relate with your point around. So I'll start. I'll try to explain it with an example. So I was trying to set up some techie tea parties for a long time, and my first thought was, right, let's go speak to some people in authority, and included statutory, local government, councils, and others. And I need to be careful what I'm saying here, in case it upsets some people. And that in itself is a bit of the challenge right there, what I've just described. And it took months and months and months, and not connecting, and I got really fed up, and I thought, I'm not waiting anymore. I just went out and did it myself. Just went out there and just set it up. Right, I got a venue, did the outreach, did this, and I flew with it almost overnight. It was set up, whereas it was just I was knocking against a brick wall for months and months, and it was that you said politics, because of politics, and why should you do it, and why should this person do it, or I just wanted to go and connect and help people. It wasn't exactly like yourself, so I can totally relate to that. I just need to take some action here. I don't care about the politics side of things. So I can see that's a similarity there. I mean, you've done it to 1,000 times the scale of what I've done it in Newcastle. So it's incredible. I think it takes sometimes, and you've done such incredible, amazing uh, impact and story. Sometimes it takes change takes people to just take some radical action. I don't know if that's extreme extreme a word to use, but you saw a problem and people in need, and you just took action to get it done and reach people. And I didn't realize before the first time we spoke, but I went off and just did a bit more research and read the stuff that you sent me. I didn't realize how many different platforms you'd been on as well, and different people that you've spoken to as well. There's Talk TV, there's Talk Radio. We spoke with Jeremy Kyle, BBC News, and were you on? There was one video I saw. Was it DIY SOS as well? That was. Oh,
Actually, it wasn't DIY SOS, and to be honest, that's a great story. Actually, you've got time for it. You've got
yeah,
time for the story.
of course I have.
So,
Yeah, yeah. What a podcast! This is
that
great.
was,
We can chat.
it was bonkers. It was in my early days, right? So I was just feeling my way around because I thought, well, I can't be ultra critical of everything. Said I've had a look inside, right? That's not fair. I wouldn't want people having a go at me if they don't really know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm a big man. I can take criticism and I can dish it out. That's not a problem. But I need to have my facts straight. And I was volunteering with a national charity, and it was fine for me. But I knew that it wasn't really having the impact that I wanted to have personally. I was just another little cog in the wheel. But anyway, the opportunity came. They nominated me for this, and it was called "You Deserve This House." And it was one of those type of things, not DIY SOS, but it's
Yeah.
one of those type of things where they come round and do bits to your house, right? And my wife was in on it. I didn't know anything, you know, and just opened the door one day, and there was Amanda Lamb, who many people probably won't know who Amanda Lamb is. But she's a presenter on some of these DIY shows, you know. Lovely lady. She really is. And I was like, oh, what are you doing on my doorstep? And she goes, oh, you've been nominated to have this house makeover thing. And Sue knew my wife, and so we went away for it was only a night, and they did up our ground floor. They totally changed it, and it was so emotional. I can't tell you. What they did was, it was clever. They got a couple of people that I'd helped at my time there, and I'd helped them get into a role that was for them. And they came back and did little bits. That was the story. They came to give something to me, and that had such a massive impact on me. That somebody, you know yourself. Sometimes you don't think, not that you do it. You don't do it to be noticed. You know what I mean? But sometimes you think that you just sort of blend into the background. But someone had gone all the way to national television to recognise what I'd done. And honestly, the reaction afterwards, my hospital and the nurses and everybody saw it, and then that's why I put it up on the website for people to see it. I mean, it's more than 10 years ago now, but the impact it had on me was just unbelievable. Really, yeah.
What were you
There
feeling
are so
at the
many
time?
incredible stories.
Yeah.
It,
Amazing.
yeah. I said to you earlier on, I can't remember when we were off air or on air, but actually, as part of the problem of all the treatment that I've had, and getting older, of course, a combination of the two. But my memory is not as grand as it was, so I find my website is a great place to go because I've met. You know, it's quite ironic, Monsieur. I can't explain to you that how. Most of us are just bits of dust on the earth, really, aren't we? Right? When it comes to it, we like to think that we're important. We like to think that what we do counts, and it does in our own small way. But in the scheme of bigger life, what one man does is next to nothing. The average man, right? But the ironic thing is, since I got cancer, my world totally changed. Not, in a bad way, of course, but actually, the people I've met, I would never have met them in 2 or 3 lifetimes. I've had visits to number 10, this one, that one, the other one, pop stars, football stars, this, that, and the other. Wherever I go now, I know people. Why? It's come about because I had cancer. That's the trigger. I find that really odd.
How is it, do you feel, has transformed and changed your mindset?
About anything in
I can see
particular?
the results. I can see the results of that shift. So I'm thinking around, changing what you do, which you described, and you're more, say, more confident or outgoing to go out and do some of this work? Is there, what's kind of the fundamental things that had changed in your attitude? Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. It does. So, in cancer, I was obviously a confident guy, right? Because I was making good money in the business. I got to fly all over the world. I got to meet some of the most influential players in that game at the time. So I was never shy. And I found that, I could have been, because my upbringing was, I was always under the thumb of my parents and teachers. And, I could have crumbled under that. But actually, it made me the reverse, if you like. That wasn't going to happen to me. I wasn't going to be that crumbling person. And when cancer came initially, it took it away from me. Like I said, I was frightened to drive. I wanted to go back to football, which was my one place. This is my one place where I can really escape, because we talk for hours about football rubbish, nothing about life, right? And that was the one place I couldn't wait to. Yet it took me 6 months before I could get back there. And going back, I remember it was an evening game. It was wet. It was cold. And it was dark. And and I was looking around me like, this was my territory. I'm a South London man, right? This is my territory, and I felt frightened and oppressed by the noise and the amount of people around. But having gone through what I've gone through now, with life experience, right? With my business, I didn't get paid if I didn't sell anything, right? So being shy and not knocking on someone's door wasn't the ideal trait to have if you wanted to earn money, right? And everyone just trod all over you because who's this guy, right? So first of all, you have to have a USP. To do anything in life, people have to remember you for, for something. Look, a lot of people have bad USPs, but they get remembered, right? Donald Trump, for example, everyone knows who he is, but not for the right reasons, but they know who he is. And I always wanted to have a USP. In my business was pretty good, not personal business, but the red trade was corrupt pretty much. Great training for today's world, I think, as well. So I knew that I was going to be the one guy that was going to be straightforward and honest with people, that they would remember me for that. And I knew that I wasn't doing only one deal, right? Because it's not like double glazing. These people, you want them to come back and buy more, right? So you want them to remember you, and they've got a diary of people to ring. Why would they ring Chris? Yeah, he's a good bloke. He has a bit of a laugh, right? Let's get him in. You know what I mean? I quite enjoy spending time with him. I lost that when cancer came. But what cancer gave me was that big clock in my head, right? And because not only me, but everyone I met, not everyone's clock's ticking, right? You become more aware of it when you face your own mortality. So I know that the politics that you found, right? I didn't even try that. So I still don't deal with the seniors of the NHS. My service goes into almost every hospital in the country. So
Oh, wow, amazing. Yeah.
to deal with them. I'm not interested. My time is my biggest value. That's my biggest asset. Is my time. And I'm spending it where I choose to spend it. And I'm not getting tied down in governmental rubbish like you're talking about. You're a bit more diplomatic than me, right? So faced cancer. There's nothing else I can fear. There's nothing to fear. I've seen my veins turning red, toxins going round my body. When I've peed, it's like peeing blood because the toxins are coming out of me. I faced days that I never was going to be there the following day. My liver was packing up. My lungs were packing up. So What have I got to worry about going on national television, about meeting the Prime Minister? The way I feel about it, he should be honoured to meet me. And that's,
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
changed that. You know what I'm saying? If people don't get
Yeah.
the vision,
Yeah.
that's fine. Look, everyone's different. Right? Everyone's different. We're not going to love everyone, are
Absolutely.
we? We have
Yeah. Yeah.
connection or we don't. Right? It's fine for me. I don't chase people in my life now. Never. I never chase people. People meet me at meetings, they meet me online, they want to do this, they want to do that. That's fine. You know where I am. I'm here. If you want to talk, happy days. I'm always up for
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
new challenge. I'm not chasing anybody.
Absolutely.
I don't have to now.
Yeah.
I'm 67. People don't like me for what I am now. They're never going to like me.
Yeah. You're focused in on, would you say, Chris? It's about the mission. It's about what you're trying to do, the purpose of what is it that you're trying to deliver and helping people and making that impact. I think a lot of people get into this mode of following this kind of invisible script and of how you should be living and working. Um, this whole layer of rubbish that you have to deal with, right, in work and this and that. But it doesn't. It's like you're following a script. That's a lot of rubbish. And I think if if you want to go and help someone, right, don't create a 10-step process and go off. You don't. It doesn't need to be like that, right? It and I think what you've shown, Chris, and displayed and proved over the last couple of years is just somebody needs help. Step one, right? You've identified. Go help them. That's it, right? Sometimes I think we get bogged down with like we need to do a 20 different steps to help. And my point of view is make a start and then just iterate and help as well. So
Once we have a lot of synergy, my friend, and you're absolutely right about focus. Because when I got into the cancer world, so I started looking. The more I looked, the more I found. Right, so I started to look at why are these people left behind, and then I saw another challenge and another challenge and another challenge. Right, and I think, well, hold on, if you don't solve that, you need to solve that first, and then you need to solve that. So I decided, right, one day I'm going down so many alleys, I've got to stop there. I've got to stay on one path only. And I decided my one path was to help people living with cancer. And that's not just the person who's got it, that's the families as well. Okay? Not their treatment, not new therapies, not this, that, the other. What the NHS is doing, it's not doing none of that. It's just to help those people. That is my path. When it comes to SimPal, same path. One path is to help those people that are not digitally connected. I don't want to know about their benefits. I don't want to know about anything else in their life. Why that's like that? What the government have and haven't done? No. Just help them at that time. It might not be sustainable, but none of us, one person, can make other people's lives sustainable. Everything's temporary anyway, right? In 6 months' time, after their SIM cards run out, there is an option for them after that, by the way. Who knows what their life looks like? Who knows what SimPal looks like? Who knows what my life looks like? You know what I mean? And the way of working now after COVID is much, much different. I think we're more worried about what's happening this week as our news. You know what I mean? We got excited about Russell Brand last week, or many people did, right? Now we're worried about, well, not worried, but we can hang on to our gas boilers for another 5 years. Do you know what I mean? It's just changing day by day what we're focused on. So It's a true way of gaining success, whatever that looks like to you, because it's different for everyone, is keep your focus and stay what you believe. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I've never cared what anybody else thinks. I've got a business brain. I can communicate with people. People will tell me quite quickly if they don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that that helps drive so much change, right? Especially in the community. So one thing I got to ask, and something to share with the listeners, viewers, is um, but for those that are listening that may need some help and could use the help from SimPal, or you're a loved one who could apply for someone. How can someone go about applying for support? Is it just through the website or?
Basically, I mean, the way we work, we got the website open. Ironically, we talked earlier on about digital exclusion, right? When we started up because we thought actually we can't be talking about digital exclusion if we don't have a phone line.
Yeah, of course. And I fell into a trap there. I said just a website. That fell into my own trap.
No,
Okay.
it is just a website. But, so we started with a free phone number, right? So we thought we've got to give everyone, we're talking about inclusivity. We've got to give everyone the opportunity. So we had a free phone up, which was fine at the start. But what happened was over time, because we never had an office officially, and people were in and out that were involved with the charity. The phone got answered, or people left a message, and sometimes somebody thought someone was dealing with it and they weren't. We didn't get back to the people in what I'd term an efficient way. So the only way we do it now is I've taken that offline because it wasn't successful for our operation. But what's happening now is yes, it's website only. Um, we don't have people don't have any problem accessing us because probably 3/4 of the applications we get come from third parties. So they'll either come from people like Citizens Advice who know us, NHS nurses, most nurses know us, Maggie centres, Macmillan
Okay.
centres, all of
They're
those
like
people know
referral
us pretty
partners.
much, right? So they refer. Or if it's not
Mm.
coming that way, people know us through the internet because they find us now because we've got more hits and we're getting busier. It comes up.
Yeah.
So there's an application
Yeah.
form on there, mind you, for people that have never applied before, which gives us a bit of background on the case. But we don't use anybody's data or anything like that particularly. So there's no data issues. And I always speak to every single person who applies. So whether that's a third party contact or whether that's a person from the internet,
Yeah.
just to understand, you get a little bit on the form, but just to understand when I'm talking to somebody, a bit like looking someone in the eye, you can get a real feel for the issues.
Yeah. Fantastic. So it sounds like a easy process for the user. And once you process that, then it just gets sent out in the post
Yeah, we send it
to
out
whatever.
first class post. We like to say we fail very rarely, but we call it a 1 to 7 approach. So we like to say that we respond within a day to the email, and then hopefully by day 7, assuming they've approved, they'll get their device.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That is a quick turnaround. Especially if you start comparing it with like applying for a benefit or something or a grant or something like that, that can take months and complicate process. And as you said previously, earlier on, it's a need that they need now, right? So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, we look,
Mm.
we set it up in such. Look, by the way, something that I didn't mention and you didn't ask. We cover the whole of the UK, and there's 3 of us, and none of us work for the
Wow.
charity. Okay,
Yeah.
so we set the thing up Now, well, we had a reset once we had COVID, so we did a reset that enabled us to do this work in an efficient manner. There's still plenty of scope for us to grow. I mean, without taking on anybody
Mm.
at the moment, we've still got plenty of capacity. As many more devices as I can find, I've got capacity to use them.
Yeah, yeah,
We set the system up because we don't want any delays in it. There's no needless, emails being sent from one place to another for someone else to who's then on annual leave. We've all got mobile phones. We can all say, thank you, I've got your email, I'll ring you tomorrow or the day after. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And one of the funniest
yeah.
things that I get frequently is, oh, thank you very much for your quick response. I'm like, okay, what, you don't normally get a quick response? No, no. If I'm applying for a grant, it takes months and this and that. And, we're business
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
We're business people, you know?
Mm. It's different. It's a whole other kettle of fish, isn't it? When you putting in a, say, like it's like a commercial style process in there. So it really does sound quite streamlined. And yeah, fantastic coverage across the UK. Amazing, amazing. So yeah, thank you, Chris, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. With these podcasts, I learn so much myself as well. So there's a little bit of selfish reason there for myself to learn so much as well. You're doing incredible work, and I'm gonna steal some words from was it Amanda Lamb on that show? She said, "You're a very special man, Chris," and absolutely are, and not you very long, but it feels like I have known you a long time through just our brief conversations and a lot of the stuff that you sent me to read. So you're doing some incredible work, and it takes even just a handful of people who stand up and go out and make a difference in the world that's going to impact thousands of people. That's exactly what you've done, and in the defiant in the face of insurmountable challenges that you faced, and you're still going through some of that. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me and our listeners as well. And again, helping so many other people, inspiring people as well, including myself. So thank you so much, Chris. And I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Without a doubt. And mind you, I want to say thank you. Look, as I said at the start, it's a great privilege for me to be, I looked you up as that's what we do, right? We all look each other up if we don't know. And that's what you can
Of
do with
course.
the wonderful social media, right? And I've seen what incredible work you do too. So that's why I was really privileged that you asked me on and delighted for the work that you do and the impact that you're making. I'd just like to leave you with one final thought, is that
Oh, please do.
the
Yeah.
biggest thing that motivates me now, yeah, it's always helping people. It's about that, right? It's about my grandchildren, okay? Because when I was a kid, right, and I don't wish to sound like an old dad, but maybe it does sound like that. But the world was a very different place now, and in my opinion, so I'm 67, right? So in that period of time, seen a lot of things. Man on the moon. Everyone has a car. Mobile phones that you can communicate with people around the world from just sitting on your bum in your bed. All of these things I couldn't have even imagined when I went to school and I had black and white television. And the Queen was just on the throne. But if I'm honest with you now, I don't feel we have a better life overall. I feel society is a lot worse than it was then. I think we had a lot more mutual respect for each other then because most of us were struggling. That's why the health system was put in to make something equal for us all. We all have an equal chance. If we go down, that someone else can pick us up and make us better again. I honestly feel that my generation and maybe the generation after us have made only a worse impact on the world than my parents did. And when I see my beautiful grandchildren, I don't want them to think that granddad, he didn't try and make things right, you know, for them.
Mm.
Because I don't believe I'm leaving them a better world than the one I had. It's a personal thing because I've seen
Yeah,
both
yeah,
sides of it. Right? You haven't, and a lot of your audience won't have seen that. But there's not any caring anymore
yeah.
in the world. Nobody really cares. Everyone's too selfish, and I'm generalising, right? They're worried about their own story.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. There seems to be a kind of culture of me, and looking, and we could go into a whole other debate around kind of breakdown of communities, um, and people being really isolated. Again, that's something that's linked around digital exclusion as well, and being disconnected leads to isolation as well. So I think there's some really wider societal issues that have taken grip. Sure, totally agree with that.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for having us,
Fantastic.
and I look forward to seeing the finished product.
Awesome. Yeah, I need to get into edit mode because I'm a bit of a newbie. I'm doing kind of every step of the process from producing, scripting, outreach, editing, publishing, all of that. Um, but you said you were honored. I'm really honored and very uh, uh, lucky to have a guest on like yourself as well. So thanks again, Chris. And I'm sure we'll speak soon. Thank you
Yeah,
so
we
much
look
for your
forward
time.
to it. Thanks very much,
Yeah,
Andrew. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
fantastic. You too. Cheers.
Cheers.